They said humanity was already extinct. The war had ended centuries ago. Earth was gone. Records erased. Soldiers forgotten. But deep inside the alien empire's Central War Archive, one file still kept updating itself, even though no one was alive to maintain it. File name: Human Soldier. Status: active. And the Empire made a mistake. They opened it. The archive world of Kareth Prime was not a battlefield anymore. It was worse. It was a graveyard of data, where entire civilizations were reduced to compressed memory cores stored in quantum vaults. Every war ever fought by the Xeric Dominion was catalogued, analyzed, and optimized. Victory was not celebrated in the Dominion. It was archived and perfected. But one archive refused to behave. Deep inside Subcore Layer 7, a sealed file kept triggering automatic reprocessing cycles. Every time technicians tried to lock it, it reopened itself. Every time they tried to delete it, it duplicated across backup layers. Commander Vess Lauren stood in front of the anomaly report. "This is impossible," she said. "Humans were erased. There is no active data source." A technician hesitated. "Yes, but the file is still responding." She turned slowly. "Responding to what?" The screen flickered, then displayed a single line. "Status check request received." Silence filled the room. Because the system was not supposed to receive requests from extinct species. Vess stepped closer. "That's not possible," she whispered. Then the second line appeared. "User, last human soldier, confirmed active." The lights in the archive dimmed automatically. Not from failure. From fear response protocols built into ancient war AIs. Systems that remembered something the Empire had tried to forget. Humans did not behave like other species. They did not stay dead correctly. The Empire thought humanity was erased. But a military file is still talking back after 300 years. And now the question is simple. If only one human soldier is left, why does the entire war archive treat him like he is still active? Commander Vess Lauren ordered the system to isolate the file immediately. Not delete it. Not analyze it. Just contain it. Because anything that could still respond after extinction was no longer data, it was a threat pattern. But the archive did something it had never done before. It resisted. The system refused containment commands from higher Dominion authority layers. Security protocols that had never failed in 10,000 years simply did not execute. A technician spoke quietly. "Commander, the file isn't inside the archive anymore." Vess turned sharply. "Explain." The holographic display shifted. Now it showed something new. Not data. A location. A drifting wreckage zone in deep uncharted space labeled Null Sector, no Dominion control. And beneath it, a single blinking signal. Origin, human military signature, unknown class. Vess felt a strange pressure in her chest. "That sector was sterilized," she said. "Nothing survives there." The technician hesitated again. "It's not just surviving, it's transmitting." Then the signal expanded. Across the entire archive world, every terminal displayed the same message simultaneously. "You opened the record." Silence dropped like gravity. Then the next line appeared. "Now the record remembers you." And that was when the Dominion learned something terrifying. The file was not an archive entry. It was a listening post. A human military system designed not to store data, but to stay awake after extinction. Deep in the null sector, something moved inside the wreckage. A single derelict ship. No power signatures. No life signs. But its weapons system, impossible, ancient, forgotten, slowly rotated toward the direction of Kareth Prime. And for the first time in 3 centuries, it sent a reply. Not a transmission. Not a message. A targeting confirmation. The Empire didn't just find a human file. They triggered a human response system that should have been dead for 300 years. And now something in the dark is finally looking back. Kareth Prime went into silent lockdown the moment the targeting confirmation appeared. Not because anyone ordered it, but because every defense system on the station recognized the signature at the same time, and reacted before conscious command could intervene. That signature had a name in ancient Dominion war records. Human War State Response Class, unpredictable. Commander Vess Lauren stared at the screen. "That ship is still active?" she asked, voice low. A technician shook his head. "It shouldn't even exist anymore." The null sector was converted into a debris sterilization field. Another screen flickered, then corrected itself. "Error. Observation conflict detected." Vess stepped closer. "Explain." The technician hesitated. "The ship is not consistently there. What does that mean? It appears only when systems try to confirm it. Silence. That statement made no sense in Dominion physics, but the data kept reinforcing it. Every time sensors scanned the null sector, the human vessel appeared. Every time they stopped scanning, it disappeared, as if it only existed when something acknowledged it. Then the archive system, still partially corrupted, displayed a recovered fragment. Project Last Sentinel, Final Human Contingency Node. Vess frowned. Sentinel? The technician read faster, voice tightening. It's not a ship class, it's a doctrine. Another pause. Human military strategy wasn't about survival fleets. It was about single-point persistence. Vess turned sharply. Meaning what? The technician swallowed. Meaning they built systems that stay alive, even after the species is gone. On the far edge of the galaxy, inside the null sector, the ship finally powered up fully. Not with explosion. Not with activation alarms. But with memory restoration. Hull plates reassembled their structural integrity like they were remembering shape instead of building it. Weapons systems aligned not through command input, but through archived instinct. The ship's core did not boot, it woke up. And inside its command interface, no crew existed. Only one preserved cognitive imprint. A fragment of a soldier. Not alive. Not dead. Just, still assigned. The interface lit up with a single designation. Last human soldier, active duty confirmed. The ship turned. Not toward Kareth Prime. Not toward the Dominion fleet. But toward every scanning grid that had ever looked for it. As if it had finally decided it was done being found. And was now ready to begin being a threat. The Empire thought they were tracking a dead human ship. But the ship only appears when it is observed. And now it has decided observation works both ways. So the question becomes, if the last human soldier has no army left, why does the war feel like it just restarted? No one saw the attack happen. That was the first sign it wasn't a normal engagement. Kareth Prime's outer defense grid simply stopped reporting status updates from Sector Ring 9. No explosions. No breach alarms. No energy spikes. One moment the systems were synchronized across the orbital layer, and the next moment they were out of agreement with each other. Commander Vess Lauren stared at the diagnostics. "Report," she ordered. A technician's voice cracked. We can't confirm system continuity." Vess narrowed her eyes. That's not a sentence. But it was happening anyway. Different sections of the defense grid were now describing different realities. One sector insisted nothing had entered orbit. Another sector reported a phantom vessel inside restricted space. A third sector showed no external threats at all, but confirmed internal system rewriting. Then came the contradiction that broke understanding completely. All three reports were correct at the same time. The archive system flickered again, violently this time. A recovered human military protocol reappeared. First contact doctrine, step 1. Remove reliance on single observation truth. Vess stepped back. That's not warfare, she said slowly. That's perception control. The technician looked pale. Commander, the grid isn't being destroyed. Then what is happening? It's being made uncertain. On the edge of the null sector, the last human ship did not fire weapons. It did something simpler. It broadcast a false verification pulse. Not a weapon frequency. Not an EMP. Just a signal that forced every sensor in range to reassess what it believed it was seeing. And in that moment, reality fractured inside Dominion systems. Because for the first time in their history, their sensors disagreed not on interpretation, but on existence itself. Inside Kareth Prime, entire defensive towers began auto-targeting empty space. Others refused to lock onto anything at all. Some systems declared the fleet under attack. Others insisted the fleet was already safe. And none of them could prove the others wrong. Vess whispered, "What did humans build out there?" The archive answered instantly. "Not weapons." Pause. "Proof of disruption systems." The technician shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. You can't fight an empire with perception errors." Vess looked at the shifting reports. Then replied quietly. "Unless the empire depends on perception to exist." Outside the station, space itself began to feel inconsistent. Not broken. Not damaged. Just no longer agreeing with itself. And somewhere in that inconsistency, the last human soldier was getting closer. Not by movement, but by removing certainty wherever he was observed. The first strike wasn't destruction. It was making reality stop agreeing with itself. And now the entire alien empire can no longer trust its own senses. So the question becomes, if you can't trust what you see, hear, or confirm, how do you fight what's coming? Kareth Prime had fought wars for 10,000 cycles. It had negotiated ceasefires with collapsing suns, treaties with swarm intelligences, and survival accords with vacuum-borne predators. But it had never negotiated with something that refused to behave like a variable. And now the last human soldier was inside their command reality. Not physically on the station. Not broadcast on any channel. He was present in the decision layer itself, where intentions became action. Commander Vess Lauren stood frozen as the central console stabilized into a single coherent interface for the first time in hours. No more conflicting readings. No more layered realities. Just one. And on it, a single incoming communication request. Not from a fleet. Not from an empire. From the human ship. A technician swallowed hard. Commander, it's requesting direct dialogue authorization. Vess hesitated. Is it a trap? The archive system responded instantly. Human war status. If this is a trap, IT is already complete. Silence. Then Vess nodded once. Open it. The room darkened. Not due to power loss, but because every subsystem aligned itself to a single interpretive layer. And the last human soldier spoke again. You built an empire on certainty, the voice said calmly. That was your first mistake. Vess narrowed her eyes. And what did humanity build on? Pause. Then the voice answered. Adaptation to uncertainty. Another pause. And you removed uncertainty from yourselves the moment you tried to remove us. The technician stepped forward. We didn't remove humanity out of fear, he said quickly. We removed it because it was unpredictable. Dangerous. Unstable. The voice responded immediately. Yes. Pause. That's why you lost. Vess clenched her fists. If you are the last human, then why not just destroy us? Why play this perception war? Silence stretched. Then the answer came, not aggressive, not emotional. Just absolute. Because destruction is simple. Pause. We don't do simple anymore. The command layer flickered. For a moment, every system in Kareth Prime tried to interpret the meaning of that sentence differently. And failed. Because there was only one interpretation left. The last human soldier was not trying to kill the Empire. He was demonstrating that the Empire could no longer agree on how to define survival. Vess whispered, "What do you want?" The answer came immediately. "Stop pretending you are one thing." Pause. Then maybe you will stop breaking every reality you touch. Outside the station, fleets began stabilizing again, but not into unity. Into awareness. Each ship now realizing the others were operating under different assumptions of existence itself. And in that moment, the Empire understood the final truth. The human wasn't an enemy inside the system. He was the reason the system could no longer pretend to be whole. The Empire tried to negotiate with the last human soldier. But he is not offering peace. He is offering a truth they can no longer unify around. So the question becomes, if an empire cannot agree on what reality is, can it ever negotiate anything again? Kareth Prime did not fall under attack. It fell under disagreement. That was the only way Commander Vess Lauren could describe it as she watched the Central Command network fracture into competing versions of the same station. One system insisted the orbital shields were fully active. Another insisted they had already failed. A third system showed the shields had never existed in the first place. All three were correct inside their own reference loops. And none of them could override the others anymore. This is impossible, Vess whispered. We run unified architecture. Single source authority. A technician shook his head, hands trembling over the console. We did. But the last human ship isn't attacking systems. It's attacking agreement between systems. The archive projection flickered violently again. A new recovered fragment appeared. Human War Principle Number 7. If the enemy depends on consensus reality, remove consensus. Vess stared at it. That's not a strategy, she said slowly. That's sabotage of understanding itself. Outside the station, fleet formations began breaking formation without orders. Not because of panic, but because different ships were now operating under slightly different interpretations of command reality. Some believed they were advancing. Some believed they were holding position. Some believed the battle had already ended. And each version was supported by valid sensor data. The Dominion Empire, once the most tightly controlled war machine in the galaxy, was now behaving like multiple overlapping civilizations that could no longer agree on what order meant. Then came the deeper failure. Communication between fleets stopped being reliable. Not because signals were blocked, but because meaning began shifting mid-transmission. A simple command like retreat was received as advance in one sector, hold in another, and mission complete in a third. The same word, different realities. Vess turned sharply. That ship is rewriting language itself. The technician nodded slowly. Not rewriting. It's forcing interpretation divergence. Then he paused. Commander, it's not trying to destroy us. Vess narrowed her eyes. Then what is it doing? The technician swallowed. It's making us incapable of agreeing on what us even is. At the edge of the null sector, the last human soldier remained invisible unless actively searched for. But every attempt to observe it created more instability. Sensors didn't just fail, they began generating conflicting results about their own operation. And inside that chaos, the ship sent another pulse. Not stronger. Not faster. Just more precise. And suddenly, entire Dominion battle groups began losing synchronized awareness of each other's existence. Units still existed, but no longer within the same agreed reality. The Empire was not being dismantled physically. It was being split into incompatible versions of itself. And in each version, the last human soldier was already winning. The Empire isn't being destroyed. It's being divided into realities that can't recognize each other. And the source is still just one human soldier in the dark. So the question becomes, if an empire cannot agree on what is happening, can it still exist at all? Kareth Prime did not receive a final attack. It received a final question. Across every command layer, fleet channel, and station system, the last human soldier's presence stabilized into a single point of clarity, something the Empire could no longer escape by splitting interpretation. For the first time since the conflict began, all versions of reality inside the Dominion were forced to overlap again. Not perfectly, but enough. Commander Vess Lauren stood in silence as every screen in the station displayed the same message. Not a threat. Not a demand. A question. Do you want to exist as one empire? Or as many truths? A technician shook his head. That's not a strategic question, he whispered. That's identity collapse. Vess didn't answer immediately, because she finally understood what the human had done. He had not conquered them. He had not destroyed their systems. He had removed their ability to hide contradiction behind unity. The archive system activated one final time, as if concluding its long-delayed purpose. Human war principle, final entry, an empire does not fall when it is defeated. IT falls when it can no longer agree on what it is. Outside the station, the last human ship remained perfectly still. Not threatening. Not advancing. Just present like a fixed point in a collapsing equation. And the Empire finally saw the real war. It was never about territory. It was never about firepower. It was about whether a civilization could remain internally consistent after encountering something that could not be simplified. Vess stepped forward slowly. If we choose unity, she said quietly, we lose everything we've become. Pause. And if we choose division? The technician answered for her. Then we stop being an empire. Silence. Long. Heavy. Final. Then Vess looked at the screen and spoke the words that no commander in Dominion history had ever been forced to say. Send our response. The message transmitted instantly. Not through weapons. Not through fleets. But through agreement itself. And for the first time in recorded history, the Empire stopped arguing with reality. The last human soldier did not destroy the alien empire. He forced it to face something far more dangerous than war. A choice it could not unify around. And in the end, the empire didn't fall from attack. It fell from understanding itself too clearly. Subscribe if you are human. The last human ship did not suddenly appear in Kareth Prime's orbit. It simply became undeniable. One moment, sensors argued about its existence. The next moment, every system, no matter which fractured interpretation it followed, was forced to acknowledge the same thing. Was there. Not as a massive fleet. Not as an overwhelming superweapon. Just one ship. Quiet. Stable. Patient. Commander Vess Lauren felt something she had never experienced in her entire career. Not fear of destruction. But fear of certainty returning too late. Lock all defensive arrays, she ordered. A technician hesitated. Commander, which version of the defensive grid? Silence. Because even the question now had multiple answers. Then the archive system activated again, this time without flicker or error. A clean fragment appeared. Human final war principle. When confusion is weaponized against you, stop giving it targets. Vess frowned. What does that mean? Before anyone could answer, the last human ship moved. Not in a conventional way. There was no acceleration signature. No detectable trajectory shift. It simply reappeared closer, inside a different layer of interpreted space. A technician shouted, "It bypassed spatial tracking." Another corrected him immediately. "No, it didn't move. Our reference frame changed." Vest turned sharply. "Explain that in real terms." The technician looked pale. "It's not traveling through space anymore, it's traveling through the rules we use to define space." Outside the station, entire defense clusters began failing not from damage, but from contradiction overload. Weapons systems tried to target the ship, but every targeting solution produced different coordinates. Every coordinate was valid. Every lock was correct, and therefore none of them could fire. And then, for the first time, a signal came from the ship directly into Kareth Prime's internal command layer. Not a broadcast, not a hack. A direct handshake with their decision architecture. And within it, a voice. Not alien, not machine, just human. Come. Exhausted. Final. "You don't win wars against us by killing soldiers," the voice said. "You win by killing agreement." Pause. "And you already did that to yourselves." Vest stepped closer to the console. "Identify yourself," she ordered. The system hesitated, then answered. "Designation, last human soldier." Another pause. "Status, enough." Outside, the ship finally became fully visible, not because it revealed itself, but because every conflicting interpretation of reality collapsed into one shared agreement. It exists, and it is here. The soldier didn't attack the Empire. He forced it to stop agreeing with itself. And now that the Empire can finally see him clearly, it realizes something terrifying. There is nothing left defending it from certainty. So the question becomes, when the enemy is no longer hidden by confusion, what happens when reality finally stabilizes?